Hello and welcome. Today we are diving into a mystery that pretty much every single one of us feels in our bones. Why is it that the summers of our childhood felt like they stretched on for an eternity? But now, as adults, whole years just seem to vanish into thin air. It's a fascinating question, so let's get right into it.
This quote just nails it, doesn't it? That feeling is so universal. It's practically a rite of passage. You go from agonizingly counting down the seconds until the school bell rings to suddenly blinking and wondering how it's already November again. It's this strange experience that connects all of us.
So that's the real question, isn't it? Is this just us being nostalgic, or is there something real, something tangible changing inside our heads? Are we talking psychology, biology, brain chemistry? Well, the answer, as it turns out, is a little bit of all three. Okay, let's start with the explanation that's probably the most intuitive. It all comes down to how we make and store our memories. A great way to think about it is to imagine your mind as a giant filing cabinet, and every year of your life gets its own dedicated folder. So when you're a kid, your world is just exploding with novelty. Your first friend, your first time riding a bike, the first day of school. Your brain is working overtime, and that memory folder for the year gets stuffed thick with dense, detailed files. But as an adult, well, life gets pretty routine, right? The same commute, the same desk, the same tasks. Your brain goes on autopilot. It's called neural adaptation, and stops recording the boring, repetitive stuff. The result? Your memory folders for your adult years are much, much thinner. And this whole idea is captured perfectly by something called the holiday paradox. It's this brilliant little thought experiment that shows the two very different ways we experience time, what it feels like in the moment versus how we remember it later on. Let's just walk through it. Imagine you're on an incredible vacation. Seeing all these new things, you're so engaged, the week just flies by. But when you get home and look back, you have so many rich, new memories that the week feels like it was a month long. Now flip that. Think about a dull week at work. Monday feels like it's 100 hours long, it just drags on. But when you get to Friday and look back, you think, wait, where did the week go? It vanished because you didn't create any new, distinct memories. So the key takeaway is this: the density of your memories shapes how long time feels in retrospect. Okay, so memory is clearly a huge part of the story. But let's go a layer deeper. What's happening on a biological level? This gets us into the idea of the brain's internal clock and how the gears of that clock might actually change as we get older. For a long time, the leading theory here has been something called the dopamine clock hypothesis. The idea is that dopamine, that famous neurotransmitter involved in pleasure and motivation, also works like a metronome for your brain, setting the tempo for your internal clock. So here's how it's supposed to work. When you have high levels of dopamine, your internal clock speeds up. It's ticking faster than a real clock. So a real-world minute might feel like 5 minutes to you. Time feels stretched out. But as we get older, our dopamine levels tend to decline naturally. This would mean our internal clock slows down. And if your clock is ticking slower than the outside world, a whole hour can feel like it's passed in just a flash. Time feels compressed. It speeds up. But, science is never quite that simple, which is what makes it so cool. A pretty recent study actually throws a wrench in this whole theory. Scientists use light to control brain cells in mice, and they found that firing up dopamine neurons made the mice feel like time was moving faster, not slower. That's the complete opposite of what the hypothesis predicted. So it shows us that the story of dopamine and time, well, it's still being written. While the chemistry is still being sorted out, another biological theory looks at it from a different angle. Not the chemicals, but the brain's hardware. A researcher from Duke University, Adrian Bejan, proposed that our experience of time is tied to our brain's processing speed. Basically, how many frames per second of the world our mind is actually capturing. The best way to picture this is with a flipbook. When you're young, your brain is fresh and fast, processing a ton of new images every second. Your mental flipbook is super thick with pages, and it takes a while to flip through it all. Time feels slow and detailed. But as we get older, our neural pathways get more complex and a little worn down. The signals slow down. We process fewer frames per second. Our mental flipbook gets thinner. And you can flip through a thin book a lot faster, right? The movie of your life suddenly feels like it's on fast forward. So we have the psychology of memory and the biology of our brains. But maybe, just maybe, the most elegant explanation of all is also the simplest. It has nothing to do with chemicals or memories. It's just simple math. Think about this for a second. For a 5-year-old, one single year is 20% of their entire life.
That is a massive, monumental chunk of their existence. So, of course, a year feels like an absolute eternity. Now let's fast forward to a 50-year-old. That exact same 365-day year is now just 2% of their life. It's a tiny fraction. When you look at it this way, time speeding up isn't an illusion at all. It's just a natural result of perspective. Each new year is a proportionally smaller piece of your total experience. Okay, so we've got memory, biology, and math all seemingly conspiring to make our lives fly by faster and faster. It sounds a little depressing, right? But here's the amazing part. If our perception of time is something our mind constructs, then we can have a say in how it's built. We can actually do something about it. So how do we do it? We fight back against routine with novelty. We have to consciously build those thick memory files we were talking about. Go learn that skill you've been putting off. Travel somewhere you've never been. Even small things, like taking a different route to work, force your brain off autopilot. It has to start recording new information again, adding more pages to that mental flipbook. And practicing mindfulness, just paying deep attention to the present moment, can help stretch your perception of time right now.
Ultimately, the speed of your life isn't just some fixed law of the universe that you have to accept. You have agency here. So I'll leave you with this to think about. What new, unique memory are you going to create this week to make your time feel just a little bit fuller and a little bit longer?